So hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video where today I'm going to show you how to farm everything in the Duviri paradox. Now this video is going to be quite long, so please use the timestamps in the video description to skip around. Also, this video will not go over the Enigma/puzzles, and I will instead leave a link to a video made by the engineer in the video description. The reason I don't want to go over these is because there is just too damn many of them. I mean, the video made by the engineer that I will link in the video description is very well made and straight to the point, and it's still 53 minutes long. So yeah, these really need a video of their own. So to start things off, I just want to remind you that in Teshin's cave there are 3 planters that will grow random flowers every day. So make sure you go there at least once a day to get some free resources. It's not a lot, but it adds up over time. Also, if you want to farm resources, I would highly recommend you stick to Duviri experience and not the lone story. Because the lone story completely eliminates things like fishing, puzzles, and even all the side objectives, which give you a ton of extra stuff. So the first resource on the menu is Aggristone. This is its natural formation and it shows up absolutely everywhere. You also get it from breaking Cuirax dolls, which are containers that you find scattered through most the settlements in the paradox. But most importantly, and this is how you will basically get all the Aggristone you will ever need, you get it as a reward from finishing objectives. This is the most common resource in the paradox that's barely ever used, so you should never really need to farm this. So let's move on to the Connla Sprout. This is what the sprout looks like out in the open, and it's most commonly found scattered around the ponds near the Narrow court. But you also get it from finishing objectives, which should honestly give you more than enough after a while, but if you still need more, simply head over to the Narrow court and have a little look around. The resource nodes are very easy to see because the top of the flower is very bright. Next up, we have Eevani, which is this lovely looking flower over here. Now, Eevani only grows in 2 places, the amphitheater, which you can see on the right side here, and the archarbor. Now, while these only show up during certain spirals, at least one of them is going to be up at any given time. I just so happened to get the amphitheater while I was recording. I generally find the archarbor to be much better for Eevani than the amphitheater, which only has a handful of flowers on it, but at the end of the day, a few flowers is better than no flowers. Also, you can occasionally get Eevani as a reward from finishing objectives as well. Next on the menu, we have Kovnik, which is this flower right here. This is a pretty obvious flower that grows pretty much everywhere in the paradox, but what I like to do and what I would recommend you get into the habit of doing as well is whenever you finish a spiral, you want to do a loop-de-loop around King's Halt, as there's a bunch of Kovnik flowers there. This should give you more than enough Kovnik if you get used to doing this after every spiral. You can also occasionally get Kovnik as a reward from finishing objectives, but if you still need more even after that, I would recommend you search the northwestern section of the paradox and you use your Kith to fly around, because the flower is very easy to see from the air. Next up, we have Lamentus, and Lamentus drops in quantities of 1 from most enemies that you'll run into in the paradox. This is one of the resources that's significantly easier to farm in the Duviri experience than in the lone story, as you will find roaming groups of enemies all over the place. And that's pretty much all there is to say about it. Whenever you see a roaming group of enemies, smack them about a little bit and you'll get a bunch of Lamentus. Then let's talk about Saggen Pearls. This is their natural formation and you generally get 3 to 4 whenever you break one. They also drop from Cuirax dolls, just like Aggristone, and just like Aggristone, you also get them as a reward from finishing objectives, which is where you will get basically all the pearls you will ever need. However, if at some point you find yourself a little bit short on the pearls, scour the humanoid settlements, as they will have both the Saggen Pearl resource nodes and the Cuirax dolls. The place that I found to be the best for collecting Saggen Pearls is in the southeastern section of the paradox, which is the snowy area. Next up, we have a Dracroot, which is this lovely flower over here. This grows pretty much everywhere in the paradox, but the highest concentration of it seems to be on the central island. Here you can easily find 20 to 40 Dracroot if you just roam around for a little bit. However, if you're in an anger, sorrow or fear spiral, you should head over to Kullervo's hold, as there's a ton of Dracroot growing all over the place there. Just run around the hold and pick up everything you see, as on top of Dracroot you can get some additional resources here as well. Next up, we have Rune Marrow, and Rune Marrow is the simplest resource to farm because it shows up all over the Undercroft. These nodes are usually AoE downed by either you or other people, so you'll just pick it up as you do stuff in the Undercroft. You can also get 1 Rune Marrow from Captain Vor. If you're not getting enough Rune Marrow by just randomly picking it up as you're doing stuff in the Undercroft, whether it is during spiral runs or while you're doing the circuit game mode, make sure you get used to spotting the resource nodes as you're running around and breaking them as you pass by them. And you'll be surprised at how fast you can actually farm it up. Next on the menu we have Ueymag, which is the cactus looking flower. Now, surprisingly enough, the cactusy plant grows mostly in the desert section of the paradox, which, funnily enough, is right next to the snowy section for some reason. This, by the way, is the area I'm talking about. The cactus is very easy to spot, but there aren't too many of them here, so it's generally better to jump in during an anger, sorrow, or a fear spiral and head over to Kullervo's hold, as there is much more cactus there. The hold is just really good for both Dracroot and Ueymag. Next up, we have Yao Shrub, and this is the mushroomy looking plant that grows exclusively in the snowy section of the paradox. This is the area I'm talking about, and the best way to farm them is to either fly or run back and forth on your gate and pick them up because they kind of stand out in the snow. You should be able to easily get 30 or 40 of them per spiral. Moving on to Silphsela, which is a gorgeous looking flower that grows on the hillsides in the paradox. So it's basically everywhere, it just grows in the hills. However, you don't necessarily need to look for the flower itself, as the flower releases spores that float above it, and they are extremely easy to spot because they're shiny. So the best way to farm Silphsela is to actually just fly around on your cave and look for the flying spores. Then, if you need even more after you pick all of them up, you can always land and destroy the flower for some extra ones as well. This is one of the easiest resources to farm because you get a ton of it per flower if you pick up the floating spores as well. Next up, we have Tasoma Extract, which comes from the Tasoma mushrooms that grow exclusively in caves. This is one of the harder resources to farm because the mushrooms aren't all that obvious, so they're easy to miss. There's a nifty map on the wiki that shows you all the cave entrances, so you can go through them one by one if you want to, but in general, you just want to keep an eye out for the Tasoma whenever you're doing an objective in a cave, and whenever you're riding through the paradox and you see a cave, just dip in and see if maybe there's some Tasoma in there. Also, there is a very convenient cave right behind the exit portal, so whenever you finish a spiral, it's a good idea to run down there to see if you can find some Tasoma, which you usually will. I usually do this right after I pick up the Kovnik that's around King's Hold. Next up, we have Ariette scales, more fangs, and Nacreous pebbles, which you get from fishing. Now for this, you have to be doing the Duviri experience, as you cannot do it in the lone story. Fishing is extremely straightforward in the paradox. Most larger bodies of water will have this platform near them, and if you step on top of it, it will give you a prompt to feed the ravenous maw. This triggers a fishing minigame where you chase down different kinds of fish with the ravenous maw. The goal is to catch enough fish in the allotted time to get to both chest icons, as this gives you the most stuff. Now, while the maw will nom on fish automatically if you just ram into them, I find it's a little bit faster if you just spam the attack button all the time, because I think it allows me to catch stuff faster. But anyway, once the time runs out, or you get to the second chest on the reward bar, you'll be kicked out of the minigame and you will get a random number of Ariette scales, more fangs, and Nacreous pebbles. And that is it! Fishing, as I've said already, is extremely straightforward in the paradox, so you just do this over and over and over again until you get all the stuff you need. And we are slowly nearing the end with Pathos Clamps, which come exclusively from the Autoworm boss fight. So once you get to the end of a spiral, you can pick up an Orpheus, which will spawn an Autoworm. What you want to do is fly towards the Autoworm and throw the Orpheus towards the orbs that the Autoworm will be shooting towards you. You want to do it just as they're about to hit you because it spawns a speed boost. The goal is to grapple onto the Autoworm and slowly make your way towards its head. Once you're there, you can press an interact button and take control of the Autoworm. Then, whilst in control, you want to beam down the two tether towers and fly the Autoworm back into its portal. This triggers a cutscene and transports you into the boss arena. Now, the boss fight itself, on normal mode, is pretty straightforward. The Autoworm has 3 orange rings around it, and you want to shoot them. Once you destroy all 3 of them, the Autoworm will spawn a bunch of adds. You kill the adds, which will regenerate the rings on the Autoworm, so you destroy them again, which will make the Autoworm spawn a bunch of smaller worms. You kill those, and once you kill them, it will regenerate the rings on the Autoworm for the last time. Once you destroy those, another cutscene will play, and this is the end of the boss fight, so all you need to do now is loot the chest in the middle of the room, which has 10 Pathos Clamps in it. And the final resource you can get in the paradox is Kullervo's Bane, which you only get during anger, sorrow, and fear spirals by defeating Kullervo in Kullervo's hold. The way you do this is once you're done with the spiral, you head over to Kullervo's hold and talk to this chap at the very top. Once you click Confront Kullervo, you'll be teleported down to an arena where you have to fight Kullervo 3 times. This is pretty easy once you have a handful of decrees, or you can even cheese it with transference and absolutely butcher Kullervo with your Warframe. And to top it all off, I just quickly want to mention Arcane Farming, which is only possible in the Duviri experience. You can't do this in the lone story. The way you farm arcanes in the paradox is by doing Undercroft as a side objective. So every now and then you will find an Undercroft portal that's just open and you can go in. This is a much harder version of the Undercroft, the enemies are higher level, and the area is also an eczema stronghold. So I wouldn't recommend you do this if your gear selection was, you know, not so great. But if you push through and you finish the mini mission in the Undercroft, which honestly isn't that difficult, even as an eczema stronghold, if you have at least decent gear, you will get an arcane once you get teleported out. So if you want to farm arcanes as well, you want to be on the lookout for these portals right here. I'm not 100% sure how these work, I think it's just random, so a random selection of portals will be available in each Spyro. And that is pretty much it for the video, so I thank you very much for watching. As always guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video and found it helpful. If you have any tips for farming resources in the Duviri Paradox, feel free to share them in the comment section down below. And if you would like to support the channel, you can check out the memberships down below as well, pluggo, etc. And I will see you next time. Bye bye.